Hey there, welcome to episode 33 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this on the just around noon time of June 26, 2024. Wednesday, episode 33. This is a episode recorded at home near a street. You may hear some traffic during any of the shows I produce. Could it be done remotely? Possibly. It would take some work, and I have to admit, today, if someone said, hey, I'll be a live guest on your podcast, on your audio program, pick a day, come to my office, come to a coffee shop, it could be done. But am I ready to go right now? No. Today's topic, working from, and then you fill in the blank. Quaggling sand, by the way, is a term I coined many, many years ago. I think I was 3, 4. It is sometimes called pins and needles. It is the sensation you usually find in a limb, a foot, a wrist, an elbow. When circulation returns, if you've been sitting funny, so that circulation has been blocked in some way. So quaggling sand, it is a mental image I'll let you conjure. I will also mention, I should mention this in all of my shows, I have discovered, luckily I don't think it's been a huge problem, but I'll have to check. I've discovered that in my production process, with the air conditioner being on more often with the heat of Las Vegas, we're hitting another record, I think, this week. Traditionally, the hottest time of the year in Las Vegas is mid-July, so we're already ahead, breaking records. So when the air conditioner comes on, I've now measured, and I pick up like an extra 6 decibels of noise, which is not generally audible. It doesn't show up on the visualization of the input, which is like a little graph. Oh, well, it's like a waveform. It's a visualization of a waveform. How about that? So you don't see the air conditioner being on, but if you actually read the range, the input range, you can see that there's an extra 6 dB that you pick up during quiet parts. During my production, I usually trim the ends, remove any weird, like if there was some excessive noise or big peaks, so that you don't hear like a boom or a loud noise. Then I normalize the loudness according to kind of a normal audio and video standard for audio levels. And then I truncate silence so that if I have to like reach for my mouse or something and there's a two seconds of silence, that will automatically get truncated. And by truncating after I normalize the loudness, the hope is that by setting the floor correctly, that I will account for real silence. So if I make any quiet noises that might fall into a silence band of amplitude, if I've normalized the loudness, then anything I've said sort of under my breath or any quiet, any sound effects, anything that may be mistaken for silence, if I normalize the amplitude, it's less likely to be edited automatically. So I've discovered that the air conditioner being on gets picked up. Those 6 dB get boosted during the loudness normalization, and then during quiet parts especially, it is loud. It's like listening to a record, a needle on a record in the science, and that's not good. So I'm turning the air conditioner off during recording. It's reasonably easy to filter out, but I shouldn't have to. I should just not record it. So there you go. So today's show, working from, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you are able to see the episode description, which includes show notes and some links. There's only one unusual link, the 2 self-promotion, and then a Wikipedia link. The summary of the show, which I'll read to you now: working from home, hybrid work, return to office, digital nomads, and maybe more options. What is this and what works? I should say what are these, but what is this whole notion of working from who knows where? I know what works for me, sort of, but your mileage may vary. So this is just a discussion about that. And again, the Quaggling Sand audio program is really more just stories or reflection, not really aiming to change things, but from my perspective, maybe what works sometimes in this case. The links for today's episode, first the usual, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Ko-fi is a testament to funny spellings. Obviously they're going for coffee, but ko-fi would not be the first thing you would type. And you see this a lot with food trucks. They go for a tricky name, but what's the name of that food truck again? Oh, it has an apostrophe and a dash and a silent 3, and so you go too crazy, and it's hard to share with people. It's hard to describe. Either way, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo has a landing page with a bunch of links to my other projects, my other audio programming, GitHub repositories, etc., my favorite coffee beans. You are under no obligation to spend any money, but I do treat it as a kind of a single landing point. It's a little bit more useful than a link tree, which you often see now in social media profiles. Ko-fi.com, I will begin posting sort of a meta announcements like, hey, a new website launched for Quaggling Sand one of these days. I have done an episode on Let's Innovate for Vegas about order of operations and how the priorities of the one or more people inside of a project may be different than the priorities of as seen by the outside world. And so here, I don't know that anyone really cares if I have a website or not. If you're listening to an audio program, you may or may not be too concerned with that. But so my internal prioritization of launching websites is a practical matter. It's a resource integration matter. It's how it fits into some other projects I'm working on. But from the outside world, it may not be interesting at all. Who knows? But both of these resources, you are not expected to spend any money. So don't believe that I'm asking for spare change or for you to purchase coffee for me, despite the name, buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Really just to see what's up, and you can take it from there. Digital Nomad. I have a Wikipedia link to Digital Nomad just so we're on the same page. I think Digital Nomad is a romantic or romanticized view. I think the Instagram generation has made it seem luxurious and enviable. Look at me at work on the beach and all that. First of all, it's really difficult to get anything done in a beach setting. Salt water, salt mist, the mist in the air, the heat. It's often temperate regions where people hang out on a beach. And sand, a breeze, the sea breeze is blowing stuff into your devices, into your USB ports. You gotta have everything blocked off so it doesn't get contaminated or damaged. I don't think it's really that much fun. And also, I have traveled a lot as a part of a work, as a job, and it's not bad. It's not horrible. I'm not poo-pooing it, but it is not pure romance. It's not having a drink on a beach and taking selfies to impress your friends. Not if you're getting stuff done. So there's a time and a place, as they say. So Digital Nomad, something we'll talk about here. I will end though I'll end at the ending, but there's nothing wrong with being being digital nomad ready. So in the beginning, we're getting into the show now. I think any of the baby boom generation, which I would assume is Gen W, I don't know if that would ever catch on, because now Gen Z has given way to Gen Alpha. So I guess we're switching to Greek. So Gen W and Gen X, which I am a part of. This crowd all started off almost certainly working in a mall or in a fast food restaurant or some other sort of high school job. Gen W probably different circumstances, but you're working in restaurants, you're getting a student job, you are you're going to school during the day and you're working in the evenings or on the weekends, or maybe you work for a family business or something. There's almost certainly, because I don't think it was really a thing, I don't think it was a common practice to work from home. So I think a lot of the people that run this place are familiar with going to work, which may be a problem for the RTO, the return to office efforts, if the management comes from a place where work is done in an office. This whole remote work thing was ridiculous as a joke. I want to see your face. Like, should I be working or should I just be looking at you? But either way, I think the older generations, myself included, started off going to work, working in a place for a particular number of hours, especially if you're billing hourly, which hopefully you can get away from that because it's an awful deal. And then you go home or you go on about your day. So work is a window of time, 5 days a week, maybe. You go, maybe you clock in or you write down a time or however that is implemented in your case, and you do your thing and then you leave. So work is a partitioned place and time. It's measurable. If your management infrastructure likes to see people working, if it makes them feel better, that's probably unhealthy, but your mileage may vary. Working in a fixed location with a defined workday has just been the one true way for decades, maybe even centuries. So changing this is obviously not something you simply snap your fingers and make it go away, which unless you have a pandemic and then you have people saying, we do have to get work done. And if we can't have people coming to work, I guess we'll have to work remotely. And that's where Zoom took off, the notion of working by looking into a camera and seeing your coworkers on a screen. Probably different if you already knew all those people versus working with people you've never met before. I think that changes the dynamic, but getting ahead of ourselves. Gen Z, the modern, now the millennials are stuck in there somewhere, the Gen Y. I think they're probably closer to Gen Z, but it depends on when that's why the Gen thing is kind of broken. Maybe if you're an older millennial, you're probably closer to Gen X, maybe. And by the way, these are all anecdotal observations. I'm not a social scientist, not yet. But Gen Z, working in a workplace or on a schedule or both, is something of an imposition. They aren't always wrong. These are modern times. If you've grown up with a cell phone, what is it? If you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, or if you grew up with a silver mobile phone in your pocket and you're always connected, you're always anxious and depressed and frustrated. That will be the topic of tomorrow's FFS Talk audio program. But you are also always connected. And so the notion of, why do I have to be there? I can just get on a video call is more natural, I think, my experiences. So my proposal, based on my own experiences, both with my working in a workplace, working remotely, entrepreneurial, working for others, etc., but also working with people of various ages, older than me, younger than me, and how these interactions have unfolded. The difference between Gen X and Gen Z, in my opinion, one, Gen X, assumes a workplace, and one, Gen Z, abhors a workplace. A workplace is sometimes essential. Sometimes you got to go to work. Sometimes the things you need are at work. But is it always? Let us look at some examples of time-shared workplaces. And by the way, these are not, did you hear that? Production by the street. These workplaces are not where you do work. They are workplaces where you perform tasks. The gym, if you go to a gym, if you have a gym membership, or if you make use of a gym, even if you're staying in a hotel, or if you have a gym in wherever you live, if you live in an HOA that has a gym, or maybe there's a park, sort of the same idea. You can go outside. You don't have a park, but there's a park over there. You don't have a gym at home, maybe, but you can go to the gym over there. You can go and do something and then go back home. A tanning salon. I don't know if anybody listening to this would go to one, but you go to a tanning salon. And the theme here is that you can go and do something. You don't necessarily go and buy something. You're not purchasing products like food or clothing or furniture. So you're going to a tanning salon because you may or may not have a tanning bed at home. You can go outside when the sun is out, but tanning salon, you can go and perform a task, go back home. Car wash, especially car washes without employees. So you have the self-serve car wash bay, which is really a high-power water jet and some detergent mixed in and some other cleaning chemicals that get injected into the water stream, high pressure, hose down your vehicle or whatever you want, and get on about your day. Just bring a bunch of quarters. So you don't have one of those at home. And even if you do, it's probably not quite as powerful as this. And you don't have to deal with everything getting wet around you. So you're in and you're out. And they're usually covered so you can be in the shade. Maybe you don't have that at home, wherever you are. So car wash. And even if you go to a car wash with the spinning brushes and vacuums and all that, those can be completely automated. So you're in and you're out. You just do your thing. Not that interacting with the employees there or with other people is necessarily a bad thing, but the list is places where you can go to perform things that you don't have the resources where you spend more of your time. Arts and craft shop. I just saw somebody post a picture somewhere. I don't really use social media so much, so it's a rarity. I don't remember where I saw it, but these places exist. You go and you paint. There are some places that have like paint and wine. So you drink wine or have beverages, a social time, and then you paint. You can paint on pottery. You can paint on a canvas. So some places you're painting a pottery item, and then they fire it, and then you end up with a little work of art, or maybe it's a painting, or maybe it's some other craft. You don't have these things. You don't have a kiln at home, probably. Maybe you do. So you can go and do something without worrying about mess of spilling paints or getting brushes or dealing with where do I get the right kind of pottery, et cetera, et cetera. So you can go there, do something, go back home. Maker spaces in general, same thing. I've been in maker spaces that have industrial water cutters and lathes and bandsaws and all manner of small tools, 3D printers, laser cutters now, large format printers. So these are things that you could have some of these things at home, but if you are not doing commercial work, or you're not, if you don't have the space to support a proper maker space, if you're into woodworking or if you're into metalworking or additive assembly, if you don't have the space and the resources and you're not doing these things on the regular, then going to a makerspace may make a lot more financial sense. It may make a lot more flexibility sense. So you may need all the tools in the makerspace, but at home you might have a 3D printer, or you might have a drafting table, so you can draw on paper with your designs instead of using these newfangled gadgets through 3D CAD and whatnot. No, but you can have some tools at home, but you can also make use of a larger variety, larger sizes, higher capacities, higher outputs, etc., that may or may not be practical. So there you go. Gaming fields. I mentioned wherever you live, there may be a park nearby, maybe part of your home association, whether you're an owner or not, maybe part of the city or a county where you live. They have parks and rec, gaming fields. I know where I live. I can look out my window and see, I believe they have 3 baseball, softball diamonds, and they actually have a skate park. So softball diamonds, soccer pitch, football field, the skate parks, skating rinks. Not everybody has an ice skating rink in their backyard. There is, if I recall correctly, they may only set it up in the winter. There is a fake ice skating rink. It's not ice, it's a plastic with the skates are able to slide on this friction limiting plastic. So you can have like a fake ice-free skating rink. They set that up at the Gold Spike, I think, downtown sometimes. I think at least one place on the Strip in Vegas had a real ice skating rink, I think. And not to mention the T-Mobile Arena where the Golden Knights play. they have something of a nice skating rink there as well. So you can go to places that have these things. And there's a skating rink in Summerlin, and there's they exist even in the desert. So you probably don't have a full-on skate park. You're not doing skateboard tricks in your living room, in your bedroom. You can go to a place that's either meant to be a skate park, like it's basically an empty swimming pool style with the rounded basins and places to perform various stunts. You can try to do it on stair railings and other places where people are not expecting skating. Either way, you are going to a place, and this is true of all this entire list. You're going to a place to perform some task or to complete a project or whatever it is, but you don't necessarily have the resources in your home office. So it is possible to do some things without visiting a specific location that has a particular resource or resources that you need. You can call this working from home. In these examples that I've given, you lack the specific resources found in these places, or you lack the scale, you lack the capacity, right? You might have like I said, you might have a water jet thingy at home. Maybe it's an attachment you put on your hose that you have attached to your house, if you have a house. So not necessarily as powerful or as useful, and then you have to deal with everything getting wet and all that. So going to a place to perform a particular task might make perfect sense. It often does. So you bring, you don't have the resources that are there, so you bring what you need to those places. You bring your car, maybe you bring some towels or some glass cleaner, paper towels, whatever it is. Maybe you bring your own ceramic or pottery item to paint and then fire it, but maybe it's something you made yourself, who knows, but you can have some of your materials and tools and other items that you bring, equipment, I guess, that you bring with you to use at these other places that you have. So it's kind of a hybrid. And then you can return home or then go on about your day to your next stop. Maybe you're washing your car and firing a ceramic thing that you just painted, and then you're going to go do some water cutting. Who knows? And then go play some soccer. You never need to go home. If you have a gym bag, or if you have an art supply carrier, like a tub, or however that works, or any collection of items that you regularly bring to work remotely, then you are already familiar with hybrid work. Since you are sometimes there, sometimes here, and you have equipment and tools, or materials that you can use at either end. You can certainly use your gym bag to exercise at home, where you can pull out your gym clothes or whatever, and you can go outside for a walk. You can go wander over to the baseball diamond and hit some balls around. So you don't necessarily have to have a exclusive go bag with your stuff to bring to the gym. You can use that stuff elsewhere. So generally speaking, the stuff that you would bring with you to specific places, you can also use at home or wherever. So you're pretty much ready to be a hybrid worker. And these are tasks that I've listed so far, which are pretty much your tasks. They're things you want to accomplish. So you may or may not be being paid for any of these things. You may be making arts and crafts, or makerspace output might be something you could sell. But generally speaking, I'm looking at how people are already making use of hybrid work, because you don't necessarily own, if you don't have a swimming pool, you can go to somebody else's swimming pool, right? You can go to a public pool, you can go to maybe your gym has one, maybe your neighborhood has one, whatever it is, your friend has one. So you don't necessarily have to have your own of everything, and you also don't always need to go to a daily 9 to 5 or whatever. You don't need to do these things all the time. You can do them when your schedule makes sense. By the way, I will apply the same thinking to school. Education is something we all learned a bit more about during pandemic lockdowns. And in general, whenever there's a problem at a school, I don't know, somebody might have a firearm. Somebody's making threats to, it's not funny, somebody's making threats to the administration to the big giant fights with people, just total chaos. I don't know how schools function anymore, but schools sometimes get locked down or they get closed down for a period of time. It might be one school, it might be a part of a school. Of course, we went through a much larger scale lockdown window. The take home, nobody is really ready for remote learning at scale. So why is this? I think classrooms, this is my opinion. I'm not a professional educator. I don't have a child psychology or developmental psychology degree or anything like this. But practically speaking, classrooms could be virtual in general. So any classroom could have cameras, maybe capturing the teacher, the chalkboard, the whiteboard, or equivalent. So making use of modern tools, you don't necessarily have to have the students on camera, but you could be capturing what's happening in the classroom so that a student who is home, maybe they are homesick, maybe they got they have a really bad case of some illness, they don't want to spread it around the classroom, they're not feeling well, but maybe the first day they don't feel well, the second day, I can watch the class and see what I can pick up here, and you can interact with other people, you can raise your hand, etc. So the technology to do this exists. Of course, it costs money, but it's not something that is impossible. So the notion that you must treat a school like a daycare center and drop your students off so you don't have to deal with them, and that the teachers there will look after your students no matter how poorly they are paying attention and so on. And that's all we have to worry about. That's it. We stop being concerned with what the outputs are, as long as they pass the test and they get on to the next grade, and then eventually they get on with their life. I get a sense that is how simplified things have become, but I could be wrong. The virtual classroom, though, virtual classroom with seats. So you're not only virtual, but it's a hybrid classroom. Now you are ready. You already have the tools in place. You have the infrastructure in place. You have the mindset to have teacher communicating with students in person, remotely, the possibility of students interacting with other students. And of course, if this is done at scale and not ad hoc, like, oh my God, we didn't even think about this possibility, let's just use Zoom, and then all the problems that ensue. Like, you make sure that the people participating are all supposed to be there. Nobody's going to drop in on a video call and do inappropriate things or show it or capture video, and who knows what they'll do with that now with AI technologies. So the take home is you need to have secure private communications, yet at the same time you can, especially for the teacher who's usually an adult, one would hope, the teacher can be on camera. The lessons can be recorded so that the student could replay it later. Maybe they missed something. Maybe they were out for the sick time at home. Maybe they were suspended. They could still participate in the classroom. Suspension is supposed to be punitive. That may make sense for cases where there's some interaction problems, violence, etc. But there may be cases where merely taking some time out of the classroom but still participating is an option. I don't know if that would go over with the student. Point is, we have the technology, we have the capability, we just have to have the will, I suppose, to make education, make learning, especially public education, which is, we're lousy with schools. We got plenty of schools. The Clark County School District in Southern Nevada is the single largest employer. It's I want to say it's the fourth largest school district. That may or may not be completely true, but it's up there. And so yeah, we have the volume of students with all of that size, with those high rankings of employment, number of students, etc. Somebody must be thinking, wow, if we ever had to have everybody stay home for a day or a week or 2 months, we are completely unprepared. Now, students often do fire drills so you can leave the classroom in an orderly fashion and go to a meeting place where you can be accounted for and so on. Those are things that happen, I'm hoping, still regularly. So that's done. People are ready. If there's ever a fire, you line up over here. You go out to the parking lot. You go out to the field. You make sure your teacher knows you're there. The administration, maybe some firefighters will come by. Make sure everybody's out of the building. We got it. Was I in my junior high school? I was in 7th and 8th grade. There were instructions on the wall for fire drills and for, it's not air raids, but it would be bomb drills, I guess. So in the event of an atomic attack, remember I was going to school during the Cold War. There was a possibility that nuclear weapons would fall upon us. So close the window drapes or blinds or whatever was available. Get under the desk, cower, don't breathe in any fallout. So yeah, we tend to have this security theater, I guess, or preparation theater, but we can actually implement infrastructure changes that make learning a flexible activity that can take advantage of the technology, but also not find itself completely overwhelmed when the status quo has to be upset. If something as simple as you just have to stay home for a month, what if there was like dramatic flooding in Louisiana or Houston or horrendous fires in California? What if these things happen? I'm not saying they do happen, but what if they did? Are schools ready for that? Or are you just going to leave people out for months? If entire neighborhoods are burned down or submerged and students can't get back to school for a month or two, then what? You can convert a stadium into a school, I suppose. But at the end of the day, we should not have fragility driving all of our education decisions. It should be robust, resilient, and it would be good at some age, I think, for the students to be ready to adopt some flexibility in how they are tackling tasks. Now, it's hard to reproduce a chemistry lab. That was, the examples I gave before. A chemistry lab, or maybe you're taking an auto shop or a culinary class in some of the upper level classes here in Southern Nevada. They have academies. They're kind of like magnet schools. So you can go and pursue, automotive engineering, I think they call it, or culinary arts, or a variety of robotics. I think there's some sort of engineering style, mechanical, or what is it? Manufacturing, I think it is. So it's hard to, replicate those things at home. However, for the bulk of the educational curriculum and process that we mostly have, by the way, No Child Left Behind, you just get graded on your tests and you can never have to talk to anyone. That's going in the other direction. But at the end of the day, I think if we enable and encourage communication and interaction without relying completely, without having to put a stop to everything, if the classroom setting is unavailable for some amount of time, make learning flexible, make it resilient, and don't throw up your arms and freak out. And that was happening. I don't know about where you are, but here in Vegas, parents were losing their minds. Like, I got to stay home with my kid during the week. My kids, I got to deal with them using my computer to call into school to learn. It was a nightmare. Horrible. Parents should be more involved in education anyway. So we should be able to have in-person and online education as soon as is reasonable as far as age of the student, because this is a part of the future. And so integrating that in, it's not the enemy. It's a tool in the toolbox, the ability to interact with people remotely. But the world might be a better place because of it. Imagine learning another language by having a classroom in another country. Something to think about. So my experience as I was an always moving Intel employee. I was the only Intel employee in Nevada. Eventually, I think 2 or 3 more people were working here. I guess I was a trendsetter. I know I was the only employee in Nevada because they had to create a foreign corporation in the state to pay me locally. So I was paid as a employee of Intel Americas, which was they use that term for the foreign corporations that they would set up where there was not already an Intel presence in the state. So Intel was based in Oregon and California and Arizona, and I want to say there was one more, but at least those 3 states. So if you're in somewhere else, you cannot work for Intel Corporation directly in your state. So technically, I was an employee of Intel Americas, but because I wasn't in an Intel facility, I was working remotely frequently. There would be I think we had a daily call one time for a device issue that myself and one of my colleagues had discovered when we were in Ireland. I didn't have a lab at home, so I had to go to Leixlip, Ireland, and sit in a lab with Kevin Clark, and we tracked down the initial problems with some USB hardware that was part of one of the chips that was in a maker product. And that resulted in like 6 weeks of daily phone calls, like conference calls. So I would dial in, quote unquote, to a huge call. It wasn't even video, it was just talking. So some of the people I knew, some I didn't, tracking down cause, possible solutions, etc. Okay, that's fine. Most of my time with Intel though was getting on a plane. So I was very good at getting to the airport in Vegas and could pack a bag, be ready to go in like 10 minutes or less. Being away from home, I had arranged all of my sort of processes to be functional when I'm not home. So bill pay, remotely shutting down mail delivery for postal mail. Got to know my mail carrier, so I could say she would know if I wasn't around. Like, oh, you're traveling again, right? So if I was gone for more than a couple days, which happened frequently, all of these things were already set to be functional and reliable, even if I was not home. Occasionally that would break. UPS would deliver a package, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be home for a week. I requested that this be held. Well, we didn't. So that's always fun. The joy of regular extended traveling for your job, for your work, is a double-edged sword. It's totally fun, very educational and interesting. Also introduces a lot of administrative work. If you do have a home somewhere, and especially if you live by yourself, you kind of have to have things in automation mode. So if you are traveling for yourself, if you are a digital nomad, you don't necessarily have the resources of an Intel, right? Maybe nobody knows. People tended to know about Intel. They kind of, oh yeah, Intel, I don't like that company. And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. But they at least knew what it was. If you're just a self-employed digital nomad, production by street, digital nomad doing your own thing, maybe you're writing ad copy or producing a travel blog, or you're an Instagrammer, and boy, that's got to be exciting if you live or work in a destination like Las Vegas and everybody is doing selfies all the time. Not annoying at all. You have to manage sometimes cultural, language, or even legal boundaries that you have to figure out if you're on the correct side of. You don't want to offend anyone. You don't want to get arrested. So digital nomad, you have that extra layer of navigating unknowns that you don't know about. You can obviously ask other people. That's become a big thing. Digital nomad, which I already mentioned. Look at me, digital nomad on the beach. And they don't know that, oh, I have my film crew behind me and I have my assistant and all that, but I'm a professional Instagrammer, so it's just me. It's all you can see. So it's not always a snap of the fingers to be traveling around all the time. To be a digital nomad, and again, check the Wikipedia page to begin. I usually do a Wikipedia page as a starting point. Wikipedia is very rarely the end of your journey to learn more. There is an entire collection of infrastructure, of culture, of helpful hints, of tools, everything in your bag as a digital nomad. How many articles like that have been written? So if you're ready to be a digital nomad, you probably are not. But you probably have your tools, your equipment, and your materials ready to go. And we talked about this with your gym bag, for example, or your supplies if you're going to go do some art or some maker spacing, some making. you can work from home or from an airport or from a hotel or from a coffee shop, you are probably ready. Oh, by the way, I didn't finish my, I totally skipped 2 sections here. For my thing, working in a coffee shop on entrepreneurial efforts is useful sometimes. So I was always ready to go work in a coffee shop or work at home. So I would guess I'm kind of blending these 2 sections together, especially if there is a rotation. So if you go to multiple coffee shops, you might have your favorite 2 or 3 and you kind of mix it up. Co-working in a coffee shop is not always useful. It can become noisy, or maybe you have to discuss confidential things about your project. So not necessarily impossible by any means, but not always perfect, not always ideal. Maybe better off going to a library or some other quiet place at that point, or picking a home and visiting that, or getting a co-work like hot desk or something. So co-working in coffee shop is not always great, but it can be fine. The coffee shop is a change of scenery for some. That's the way I approached it. I tended to be if you go to the same coffee shops all the time, you run into the same people, you become kind of a part of ongoing conversations, and before you know it, you're talking about the latest this and that, and you're like, oh, I got to get some stuff done here, and it's the day is over, so you have to figure that out. And by the way, by being the only Intel employee in Nevada, I was never thinking about working while at home, never thinking like, oh, I got to go to a coffee shop and get some work done. Everything was Intel's intellectual property, so I would do it at home, but I would never run into coworkers. I would never be like, hey, you want to go have a meeting at a coffee? Never while I was at home. So that was an interesting boundary that was easy to have set. I used to tell people I could sit anywhere in any of the usual places I would hang out. I could shout code names and product strategy, and nobody would have any idea what I was talking about. Remote work via video calls can work, in my experience again. Though my experience working with people I have never met or don't know in some way is far less rewarding and productive. They're not awful, but if you're going to have basically the value of personal interaction, of in-person meeting each other, or even hanging out away from work. When I would go to Ireland or Italy or or France or Oregon even, you can interact with your coworkers and you're like, oh yes, we've been on video calls before. But then you're like, hey, you want to go grab some dinner? You want to go out to lunch? You want to go, we have a meetup at a pub that was popular in Oregon. So you actually become socially engaged without having everything be about work. And then as you get to know people, it's a slightly different dynamic in a video call, right? So it can be valuable. It's possible to have video calls with people you don't know at all. But at the very least, if you intend to have really productive engagement, it may behoove you to have discussions that are not work related. So you actually know the person. They become something other than an image on your computer screen that you have to deal with, right? Then it becomes somebody that you actually know. I think that's a take home that I have. So so digital nomad, it sounds fun. You have to deal with boundaries and travel and missed flights and lost luggage sometimes, and who knows what's going on. So, but if you're ready to be a digital nomad and you have your tools and your equipment ready, and you already are, maybe you do work from home and then you go to the office, so you already have kind of a work bag, your computer, your messenger bag or something, your backpack. So you're kind of already ready. And if you ever fly a lot, you may, like I always had, I had my toiletry bag. You don't use the stuff in your bathroom. You have toothbrush and all that. You have a travel version of everything. So you're not like, oh, I left my toothbrush at home, or, oh, it's in my luggage, right? Everything is ready to go. So if you have your tools, your equipment, your materials in a ready to go state, then you could work from home or an airport or a coffee shop, or go to the office or go to someone else's office. So if you always think in terms of not being anchored to a single work context, a work location, a work time frame, but on being mobile first, you can do it with websites, you can do it with how you interact with the world. So if you're ready to go and you are ready to function, you have a laptop computer if you need one, or you have, I know someone who used to do home remodels or handyman type work. So he just had his tools. He would be ready to go wherever he needed to go. He would take the tools he thought he would need, put them in his car or his whatever vehicle he had, and go. But he would sometimes stay in hotel rooms just to get away from, or to be closer to a job site or whatever. So he'd stay in a hotel for a week, and he would get a completely separate hotel room for all of his work stuff. So he could not be surrounded by his tools and his work items, but they were ready to go. They were right there. So you can adapt your workflow and your use of tools and your materials and all that to suit your work style and where you need to go and how long you need to be there and all that. So that was an interesting variation on a theme. I think when people think digital nomad, there's an automatic rush to, oh, you have to have a cell phone and a tablet and a laptop and maybe a nice microphone and whatever other, the loud ones are out today. Whatever you need to do your Instagram, your selfies, your content creation. I'm not belittling that. It's just a sort of a sterile term at this point. So you have what you need to do these things when you're on the go, and you might even have a camera person, or you might have a production team somewhere. I know a lot of people who do YouTubers. They have their production team remote, right? So you can be producing a show for someone. You don't have to be in the same room. Some do, some don't. So you can see all this with younger students as well. Like me in the old days, I used to have my backpack with everything in my backpack. So go to school, come home. I kept everything in my backpack, so I was always ready to go to school. So if I was running late, I didn't say, "Oh no, I left my homework." So kids already get this; they already understand it. Kids sometimes have lockers at school. I don't know where modernity is on that. I think the last time I was at a school was a couple years ago for a junior achievement thing, and I believe there were still lockers. So you can have some of your materials at school. But I think eventually kids figure it out, like, oh, if I leave it at school, then I don't have it here and there. So they become familiar with the notion of having materials split in location. So you just get a big backpack, carry everything around all the time. Not necessarily healthy, but a possibility. So at the end of the day, I think if everyone was sort of familiar with the notion that I don't necessarily have to do 80% of the things that I do in a particular location. Like I don't have to do all of those things in the same location. So if I need to go to work, maybe I have to go to work for an in-person meeting. Okay, that's realistic. Do I have to go sit in a cubicle and do the same exact thing that I was going to do at home, but I now have to account for travel time and whatnot? Well, if I have to go to work for that meeting, I'm there. There's a sunk cost in the traveling to and from the commute. If I have to have a meeting in another city, I have to get on a plane or drive a long distance, some long distance transit. Now I'm in this different city or different location. Now I should make the most of it while I'm here. So you have that mindset in general. And I have a feeling people that were in the workaday world or are in a place that is not car focused. So if you're in a downtown style, like if you're in Manhattan or anywhere in a lot of places in New York, you are probably familiar with, if you're walking especially, like, oh, while I'm on that side of town, I will accomplish the things that make sense to do while I'm there. So if we had that sort of ingrained in how we move between workplaces and where we are doing things and why we need to be in certain places to accomplish these things, I think the digital nomad mindset could be applied to even if you are doing the normal go to work, go home, because you're still also going to other places to do other functions, to make use of other resources. And so my take, because, it's nice to get out of the house every once in a while. Working from home can be a little stifling now and then. It's identifying what works best, whether for a student or a teacher or an employee or an entrepreneur or an artist or whatever it is, whatever you're doing, figuring out that balance while at the same time meeting some sort of expectations or responsibilities. You may be working with a team and they really need you to be in a particular place. And those are all things that should be negotiable to optimize. What are we looking for here? Do you just need to see me working? Do you not trust me? Or is it, hey, if we're in the same room for an hour a week, we can be more productive with our brainstorming? And you're like, yeah, that makes sense. So it's not, I just want you to be here. It's, here's what we can accomplish if we are flexible in our time, but we can also not be satisfying somebody's paranoid insecurities, but rather, oh, this really does make sense. So there you go. I personally, my time at Intel, I was traveling about 80%, maybe more. Even there was no Intel facility in Vegas. So I was very, very rarely expected to be sitting in a cube at a desk. More frequently, I would be in the lab in Lake Slip or in a lab space in Oregon. In Toulouse, there was a large kind of common area, so there wasn't really a cubicle. So I could just sit wherever and work with the Edison team. So when I was in Italy, they got me a desk in a co-work space called the Toolbox. And so I was there for like 2 weeks. So it just depends. And the ability to be flexible and where I was setting up camp. There were times people would think I was nuts. I would always book long travel with a layover. And they're like, why won't you get a direct flight? I said, well, first of all, you can get some really screaming deals if you're willing to sit in Newark for 2 hours. At the same time, I could go to Newark. First of all, you can stretch out, walk around, grab a coffee, take it easy. If you're flying international, you can sometimes get some, airport lounge time. And I could set up my computer and I could get some work done, do some emailing or catch up on some reading of things or whatever it was. You can actually make use of that time if you have that digital nomad mindset. And I'm using that as a generic term here. So if you are prepared, if you have the tools and your materials and you have what you need, and you're familiar with how to get set up or how to make the connections and get the data to use the remote this or the cloud-based that, you can be a digital nomad. You don't even have to leave your home. You don't even have to leave your neighborhood. You don't have to leave your city, but you can. And if you're ready to do those things, and similarly, by the way, if you are a digital nomad and you need to go to the gym or you need to find a maker space or you need to go play some soccer, all the things and more that I listed previously, you can do those things often in other places. I was staying in a hotel in Liffey Valley in Ireland, and the hotel was known for their gym that they had, and people would actually have a membership at the gym at that hotel. So it had I guess it had a nice swimming pool also. So you can always find, not always, but you can often find these resources that you need to make use of wherever you are. So this mindset, this ability to be a quote unquote, you can just be a nomad. You can be someone that has a home base or maybe not, and you can be ready to function, to interact, to be productive, to be interesting and interested in a variety of locations. So I kind of scoff at the RTO movement. I think it's a flex of management to reintroduce a sense of control. Like, you've had it too easy, this whole working from home thing, too convenient for you. I think layoffs are already showing that maybe the problem was just too many people, that they overhired. That's maybe a different topic. Who knows? But I mean, you'd have to look at their financials and so on. But I think at the end of the day, if everyone becomes prepared and sort of equipped with the mindset and the tools and the best practices and what works for you, I think we ultimately end up with a more flexible workforce, a more flexible environment where people can do interesting things. They can leverage their creativity in ways that they can actually do things with. They're not stuck like, oh, I wish I could go do this thing at 3:00 in the afternoon when there's some space or resources available to do whatever it is, but I'm stuck in a cubicle because I have to, all of these things that are stifling unnecessarily. If we learned anything from the great lockdown, it's that there are other ways to do things. And if we actually measure and decide based on what's working and what isn't rather than paranoia. And again, I just want to see, and I've had managers like this. I would rather you work so that I can see people where, they want to see. They want to see them. And by the way, one of the people that did this, he would sit in his cube and, because he had a cube, he didn't have an office, so good for him, I guess. He would screw around in his cube all the time. So it was all for show. It was all paranoia. It was all insecurity. If we can get over that, and if we can actually extend this into education, and we can enable students to learn in ways and at times that work for them, and we can make use of remote resources, I think fragility can give way to modernity, and we can start to see some positivity and not get stuck in all the silly. Just an opinion, but I prefer it. Oh, I was going to say, after my time with Intel, because I was remote most of the time, because I didn't even have an assigned cubicle. I think after the first, initially we were in SC1, Santa Clara 1, which was the first Intel building. So the old school on, was it Bowers and Central? Bowers or I think it was Bowers or Lawrence. No, Bowers. Yeah. Bowers and Central Expressway. So I had a cubicle in SC1, and then I was sharing it, but I was never there. I mean, I was never there, ever. I think the 2 or 3 times I was there for more than a day, sharing it, and then our piece of the Maker Innovator Group moved into the R&B building, into a partitioned badge access area, and then I was probably there maybe half a dozen times. I spent more of my time in Leixlip, Ireland, in that Intel facility than any other Intel facility in the world, and that was okay. So the take home for me is that I never see myself working in a cubicle, in a cube farm for some big company ever again. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy, and I don't think it's for me. I would rather be on the move, depending on what I'm doing though. And as far as my own efforts, I do like working from home, but I think I would rather occasionally go to a coffee shop or something. I'm out of practice in having everything split across, I left it in my computer at home. So that would take an hour or two to make sure everything is all synced up. But otherwise, I'll have to get back into that, I suppose. So there you go. To consider your work days and what you would do and what would work for you. And I would really, especially if you are looking into the effect of smart homes and social media on developing minds of young students, The Anxiety Generation, a book I just finished by Jonathan Haidt and his co-author, whose name escapes me. There are possibilities. I don't think no technology classrooms are a good idea, but I think integrating these technologies into the learning process rather than treating them as a distraction or the enemy, I think makes more sense, and we can actually change up our educational infrastructure so it is not so fragile and doesn't induce panic at the thought of kids having to learn from home. And I will end on, since you stayed this whole time, quite possibly the funniest group email I've ever seen was from one of my colleagues at Palm. I will not share his name. He sent an email to everyone in our group. So you're going to say something like 12 people, maybe. I'm going to say that. So he sends an email and it says, "I'm reading from home." Doesn't get any better than that. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. You're under no obligation to spend any money, but that's where one of these days, all of these things I'm working on all at the same time will. But have I ever mentioned multitasking is not an innate human trait? We're not always good at it. So yeah, ideally we will have some more interesting things to put up there one of these days. Stay tuned. You don't have to spend any money, although my coffee powered projects will always appreciate some extra coffee beans. That's where I'll leave it today. Thank you for listening.